Azay, and welcome to the No Script Show. My name is Ruan Goosen, the first best Ruan on Twitter. And I'm here with my biggest nemesis in the world, Odin. And we'll see if we can get somewhere today in this podcast.
Yeah, welcome to this sort of semi-peace summit, Ruan. For complication's sake, so I'm going to call our guest Goose and regular Ruan just Ruan. just a heads up. How you doing, gents?
No, I'm doing well. I'm safely in quarantine, not sick yet, so no, life's good.
Okay.
Yeah, mate. Also, what is this beef that you guys are talking about? Because if it's got anything to do with football, I've got nothing to add, to be honest.
Listen, unfortunately for both of us, there isn't much football to beef about at the moment. So yeah.
No, I was waiting for the big football deal to come, and now it's a bit of an anticlimax. So we're gonna have to find something else to bicker about.
Bruh, I'm just sad now. It's ruined everything. Even in the US, all basketball sports all basketball and football, March Madness, not happening. So,
dude, there's nothing happening anywhere, but there's something really cool happening, at least in the racing community.
Oh yeah.
So I do sim racing, which is online simulation racing. And the guys in Formula 1, for instance, and the guys that are doing GT3 racing and so on, what they've done is they've actually started doing the races that they were supposed to do live on track in a simulated environment. So you can kind of watch it live on YouTube or wherever. It's all broadcast for free. And you can pretty much still watch the races.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, the future's here, eh?
Yeah,
definitely.
It's not sanctioned by the FIA or anything. They just came together and said, "Well, let's do this," and still frickin' race. So that's at least pretty cool.
So I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's at least something. The future's here. Goose said. Since we're already on the topic, let's just dive into this whole Wuhan virus thing. Yes, I called it Wuhan.
You're not allowed to call it
the
Wuhan
China
virus.
flu.
Yes, I'm not allowed to call it Wuhan virus, despite German measles, Spanish flu. Nobody's carrying Ebola from the Ebola River, Zika virus from the Zika forest in Uganda. We can do this all day, guys. We can do this all day.
Did you see that tweet the other day from some guy who said, "We don't call the Spanish flu anymore"? I was like, yes, we do.
Yes.
Pretty much everyone's like, sorry, yeah, we do.
They literally changed the Wikipedia page of the Spanish flu to make it's not the Spanish flu anymore. So yeah,
I saw that. I just want to ask one thing, to everyone. I know that we're all fractured and we're all sort of disparate and all that, but could we maybe just not simp for the Chinese government? Because that's what people are doing with this shit.
Yes.
People, do you hate Donnie from Queens so much that you want to simp for the Chinese government?
The Chinese government who covered up this whole saga for about a month and could have prevented 95% of the spread if they actually just acted like a capitalist government should.
That's exactly what gets me irritated about this. It's wet markets. Look, honestly, the stuff they eat, relative to me, pretty fucked up. But I have no doubt that if I grew up in that culture, I would think that it's okay. That being said, while I'm on the topic, you can eat a cat or a bat or a dog if you want to. I wouldn't. But there is a marked difference between just slaughtering the animal and boiling the fucker alive. That's just fucked up.
Well, have you eaten a lobster though? I mean, that's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and also, there's veal and foie gras and casu marzu. Casu marzu is the one that I would definitely never eat. It's this weird Italian delicacy where they have flies lay maggots in the cheese and it turns it into mush. I'm like, how in the fuck is this a delicacy?
It's not.
Boss on that one, yeah.
So for me, focusing on the name and focusing on on the wet markets is sort of like focusing on the sideshow. The problem here is, even if, like, to me at least, even if like something else triggered this, let's say some sort of Chinese fucking yoga triggers this disease, the problem would still be the same to me. The problem is that they have, like the Goose pointed out, this repressive fucking commie government that sat on their asses about this for like a month and could have prevented all of this, and now we are effectively screwing our global economy, which I guess both of you guys are more qualified to comment on.
Can I insert a black pill into this equation?
Sure.
So, like, the South African government is basically doing the same as the Chinese government. We're trying to filter all communication through the government, and I mean, we're repressing speech at the moment, which could, benefit information flow and stuff. But the government wants us to literally cipher everything through them before it gets released. So we're literally copying the Chinese government at the moment.
But that's not unusual. We are commie government anyway.
No, that's the thing.
I'm more concerned on like for how long this kind of lasts. Because it puts the ANC pretty much in the best position to really control us for as long as they want to.
Yeah, as they say, never let a good, never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
That could be super interesting as well.
We'll see what Cyril says tonight. By the time this podcast is released, we'll probably know what's going to happen. But
assuming he shows up anywhere on time, if he shows up anywhere near on time.
Yeah, what is that about? Why is he so useless?
Like,
I have good information. I have good information that we're definitely going on a lockdown tonight. It's pretty much a given.
So when you say lockdown, what do you mean?
So I know the military is starting to ready up. So it's basically going to be a lockdown like Italy. Only essential travel to work, or one person per family can go buy food. But no, it's going to be a solid state lockdown.
Shit. Well, I'm more worried about that this crisis is being used to expand. Like you said, those laws of free speech, and in the US, it's used to expand the federal government. I'm deeply concerned about that. I think anyone just mildly to the right of Chairman Mao would be deeply concerned about that government fucking expansion. Hey.
Yeah, well, it's just like after 9/11. I mean, they used that crisis much to the benefit of expanding government powers into, citizens' freedoms, and they're definitely going to try the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's the other thing for me on this whole thing is that what happens after this? And by that I mean, let's say, especially with regard to the Northern Hemisphere and the Western industrial countries in the Northern Hemisphere, they're gonna go into summer, but the fall or the autumn, depending on what part of the world you're from, is not that far away, and there could be a second spike. And my concern is, if we have not, or if they have not actually sort of expanded their capacity to deal with this, then this initial phase of isolation is going to do sweet bupkis, because when that second spike comes, we're fucked anyway. And if that happens, that means we would have effectively killed our economy, or killed the booming Western economy, in favor for a second spike that just ruined things anyway. Like, how long? The federal government needs to say, how long about is this going to last? Because I don't think small businesses and shit can run this for 3 months at a stretch. I don't think that's possible.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I mean, the Spanish flu's worst season was the second season. It killed most people in the second season. So it's definitely not a one-time wave. And you've also got the problem that this might mutate and cause worse symptoms than the current one. So the future is very unsure. And I don't think any government knows how to handle this at the moment, really. Except maybe South Korea. They look like they've got things under control.
What are they doing?
I'm not completely sure. I know they've used the new drug. What's the thing called? It's chloroquine, hydrochloroquine. And you with another drug. I'm not sure what the other name is. And yeah, it looks like they've got it under control. I know the media is touting South Korea and China, but I don't trust the numbers that come out of China. So I think, and Singapore as well. Singapore is also handling the crisis quite well.
Yeah, China, gents. How much do you believe that China has this under control?
They may have it under control in the way that they want to have it in control.
Yeah, they're doing what they do best, killing millions of people. Yeah, no, I think I think you're absolutely correct there.
Because I think it's pretty easy to cover up how many people are actually dying when you're literally an authoritarian government.
Did you see? Did you see that meme from or about North Korea with regards to coronavirus?
Yeah, it's like 2 cases at 4 p.m., 0 cases at 5.
And it just carries on like that. It's brilliant.
Yeah, kill it in the womb. Like, really, it's that simple.
I mean, okay, so here's my thing, guys. I'm on a lot of groups, and a lot of my friends in some of these groups are, for whatever reason, very far to the left, and they are obsessed with focusing on the name. I'm like, who gives a fuck what the name is, guys? Who gives a fuck? I'm honestly only calling it Kung Flu at this point just to piss them off, because they're being ridiculous and silly. Like, you're trying to change the narrative when you don't want to have the difficult discussion about who's responsible for this and how bad it and who's responsible for how bad it got. I genuinely feel heads need to roll over this. Some shit needs to be done. The Chinese government needs to be held accountable for this shit.
How?
Yeah, and the thing is they won't, because the liberal media is covering like all their tracks for them, and they're basically a propaganda arm for the CCP. So the normie in the street isn't aware that China is actually this responsible for the crisis, and I don't think we'll completely know in the short term to what extent they actually are responsible for this.
What do you think they have to gain from it? Let's say this
power.
Was the plan, pure power.
Yeah, pure power. I mean, they want to do what the US did after World War II and surpass the United Kingdom as the superpower of the world, basically.
Yeah.
And they can't do it through markets, so they have to do it through virus.
Because economically everyone's kind of screwed right now.
Economically everyone is fucked.
I can tell you from my personal business is that I've got quite a number of massive quotes out. I'm talking about projects that are 2-3 years long that are currently on hold because no one's at the office anymore and they're not taking on anything new until they know what's going on. Which is a little bit terrifying for myself, at least. And I'm just a small business. And
you can extrapolate that to all the businesses, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, Goose. Yeah. I mean, Goose, you'd know. You're the economic expert here, so.
Once you study economics, then you know, like, people don't actually know what's going on, basically. So, your guess is as good as mine. But I know the response is very wrong. I'm very against what the central banks are doing at the moment to try to increase liquidity, because I don't think it's going to work.
That's just what the US just did, right?
Yeah, well, the Fed they injected $1.5 trillion of liquidity into the market about a week ago.
Holy fuck.
I think that's more than they did in 2008. I mean, their balance sheet is about more than it was in 2008. It's above $4 trillion. So, and the problem is, I mean, if you look at the Fed's tools it has to at its disposal, it basically can only expand its balance sheet and contract its balance sheet. So that means putting liquidity into the market, taking liquidity out of the market. And all that affects is the demand side. So if there's a demand side shock like there was in 2008, for example, they can just pump a shitload of liquidity into the market, and that will like force people to spend because it puts money into the economy. But what we're seeing now is a supply side shock. So production is going down, and the Fed can do absolutely fuck all about a supply side shock because they can't control production. They don't have any effect on it.
Yeah.
And so they're basically pumping liquidity into the market. Supply is going down, and that's a perfect recipe for inflation.
Awesome. Let's just devalue all our savings. Let's just...
Yeah. That's literally that. Like, I mean, and the problem is that the dollar isn't necessarily going to weaken because it's a safe haven. So because of all of this uncertainty, everyone is just pumping or putting their money into the dollar or treasury bills. So the dollar is freaking strong at the moment, but in the long term, the US is definitely going to see a lot of inflation.
Well, I want to backpedal to a question, Craig. Ruan, you said, like I said, the Chinese government needs to be held accountable, and there's a question of how. And gents, I don't know if either of you have an opinion on how, but I think they should. I'll be honest, I have no idea how, but I think that they should be held accountable for this shit.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see when the dust settles to what extent they were responsible. I mean, you all probably know about the lab that was in Ruan, the biochemical lab. So I think we'll see a bit more news on that in the coming future. If it was perhaps maybe a virus that was man-made, because I've been hearing stories about this because it's just like SARS. This virus, it's very similar to SARS, but I've seen an interview with a doctor where he says like the virus is definitely not a natural virus. He says there are very, very good signs that it was man-made. But yeah, I think we'll have to see in the future. With regards to holding China accountable, your guess is as good as mine. We'll have to see what Uncle Trump does.
Yeah, speaking of Donnie from Queens, Ruan, have you noticed how he's dead set on calling this China virus?
Yes.
I mean, like I saw like a news prep where he scratched out the word what is it? He scratched out the word coronavirus and called it China. Like that's the thing about Donnie from Queens is that he's like once he locks onto something, he's like a dog with a bone, bro. Like he's just dead set on calling this China virus, like all the way. Like he's just I've seen tweets of him. He's just like China virus fact. They like somebody tweeted coronavirus fact check. He's like China virus fact check. And just like, oh, and by the way, guys, yes, it is a Chinese virus. No, that doesn't mean that we're racist against Chinese people. Okay, and I feel for some of my actual Asian friends, some of them Japanese and especially Japanese friends who are like, oh fuck, I'm being targeted. And yes, there's an anti sort of Asian feeling and let me just state this now, none of those people, if you know a South African Chinese person, or just even your average fucking Chinese person in, let's say, actual China, or anywhere in the world, the vast majority of them are not responsible for this. And if you genuinely want to take out your anger on them, you are a fucking idiot. A Chinese American who was born in California, who's never been to China, is not responsible for this shit. That being said, it is a Chinese virus, guys. Let's stop, pretending otherwise.
Yeah, dude, again, it just comes to trying to control the narrative. Because no one can say anything bad about China, because if you say something bad about China, there's something wrong with you. So, it's all about controlling the narrative. I saw a video or a compilation on YouTube with CNN anchors, and they were saying they're doing some whole speech on you can't call it the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus or whatever. It's racist. It's this. It's that. And then, like 30 clips after that, when the news broke out, like they were calling it
I saw that.
the Chinese virus and the Wuhan virus and all these other things. Like, come on, guys.
I saw
really?
that. It's so good. It's so good. Like,
Oh, by the way,
it's one of those. It's like, what's that meme called? It's like
Chef's kiss.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Curb Your
yes.
Enthusiasm meme.
Yeah.
also,
That's
so
yeah.
Also, by the way, I know the Goose and I are kind of in agreement on this. Isn't it amazing how one virus suddenly made people care about strong borders? Like, just suddenly, just amazingly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Suddenly.
No, I love it.
Now it's important.
There's a Curb Your Enthusiasm about Justin Trudeau, who's like, we stand with our immigrant population and we stand with the Chinese, and then it's just like this news article which says Canada shuts all borders. It's like you couldn't buy a better meme than that. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. People are becoming nationalists like in a week. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now obviously with all this shit going on, what's actually happening in the Democrats' politics?
Speaking
I
of
haven't
politics,
been hearing anything, and
yeah, let's switch over to our US news desk. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the US news desk. I'm about to dive into it, but before I dive into it, if you are somewhat upset by some ravaging virus pandemic ruining the world, then you might need a little something to take the edge off. And what better thing to take the edge off a Chinese virus than whiskey from one of their rivals and their ancient enemy, the Japanese? I'm talking about, of course, Akashi Red whiskey, which I'm sipping on right now by Egashima whiskey plant. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful amberish red whiskey, reminiscent of the setting sun in the land of the rising sun. And if you really, really, really need to take the edge off, I would suggest taking a whole glass full of it. Akashi whiskey. Look it up at your greatest booze distributor today. Now, getting into the news thing. There's a bunch of US senators, and I think you guys may have heard about this, who recently sold off a shit ton of stock, dumped it out, at a conveniently close time to when this outbreak started getting bad. So, what's your thoughts on that, guys?
Tell me more.
Yeah, just
tell us
it
a
was
little bit
very
more
good
about
timing. I think it was like just after a meeting where they actually heard the severity of the Wuhan flu. So and they basically sold their stocks, and I think they call that insider trading, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the senators, I think she's from Maine, the Democrats. Oh fuck. Anyway, one of the senators, she's like, "Oh no, my portfolio is handled by my sort of handlers or whatever."
Yeah.
And cool, fair enough. Here's the thing, lady. You and your husband dumped out all this stuff at an inconvenient time. And isn't it weird how you yourself admitted that you spoke to your portfolio handlers after the meeting and they just happened to dump that stock? Like, imagine if you guys are my portfolio handlers and I happen to know some shit's coming. I'm like, yeah, some shit's coming, guys. It's going to be tough. And then you guys sell off my stock conveniently. And I'm like, and then a week later, you're like, oh, by the way, we sold off your stock. I'm like, oh, really? Well, I didn't order you to do that, but that's damn convenient that you did. Like,
No, it's just like the Steinhoff story. I mean, selling off your stocks before you know the shit's gonna hit the fan, it's wrong either way. So, no, I think they're definitely gonna see some jail time for that.
They're politicians. I don't know. I don't think so. But
yeah, that's true.
that's super interesting. So,
yeah.
But
Wotan, tell me what's your feeling about the 2020 election?
2020 election. Okay, so
what's the news been? Because obviously Bernie's out now. isn't he?
Well, he hasn't quit. Okay, so firstly, rip to Aloha Mama Tulsi Gabbard, who quit and endorsed old Joe Biden. Yeah. People
Sleepy
are pissed.
Joe.
Sleepy Joe. Yeah. Can we just give Donnie from Queens his due that he's damn good at giving people nicknames?
yeah,
like the dude is just
Boss.
based AF.
Absolute boss. Yeah.
Also, I can't believe, just a pointer, the president of the United States literally is married to a supermodel, wants to create space marines, bangs all the hottest women he wants, and lives in a giant golden tower. Like, that's the reality we live in right now. Do you realize that? Like, anyway,
I've thought about that sometimes, and it's fucking amazing.
I mean, he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna make a space force. Yeah, I'm just gonna marry a supermodel. Like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, who cares?
Donnie does what Donnie wants to do, dude.
I'm just like, okay, done. But yeah, with the 2020 elections, well, obviously, an economic meltdown is the least palatable thing Donnie would want to happen. Big ups to him for fucking cutting all travel from Europe. That's total President Trump right there. And also, weird how they didn't call the travel ban a white ban when it was against white people from Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Double standard.
I don't know about you guys. Like, is that weird to you? I think that's pretty weird.
No.
Of course, man. That's super weird. Like, yeah, like if you want to follow, if you want to have a certain narrative, fucking stick to it. Just stick to it. You'll be more authentic.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's the goal.
Yeah, but
Authenticity is definitely not the goal.
Yeah, no, of course, but
At least not for their media.
At least, I mean, even though you're fucking wrong, at least have a backbone, man. Jeez.
Yeah, but him cutting shit down. Yeah. That's a good move.
So I know the record is basically no incumbent has ever won election after economic collapse.
Yeah.
So if Donnie wins 2020, then he would be the first one to do so.
Yeah, but there was an XKCD comic. I don't often read this comic XKCD, but there's a bunch of XKCD comments that showed you it's like nobody has ever won the presidency without winning the state of New York until so and so did it, and it tells you this long list of things of like and Donnie did it first. Like, he won first time technically without the popular vote, but he also broke the Great Blue Wall. And no challenger had ever done that before. So I wish I could find it, but it's an XKCD comic. There was also a comic that said, in that comic it said, no incumbent has ever won, or no person has ever won the presidency without the southern states until so-and-so did it. So if you actually look at it in the great span of things, the sort of history of the US presidency is all about breaking the mold. And honestly, at the end of the day, assuming Wuhan flu doesn't kill off too many of the older generation that do generally go for Donnie from Queens, but also the younger generation, obviously, like, we're getting more based and red-pilled, as it were. So people underestimate how many young voters are voting for Trump. I mean, your choices are between an octogenarian socialist, a dead guy, Joe Biden, which...
Yeah, literally dead. He's literally dead.
He's dead. Like, he may actually be dead. Like, where is Joe? Like, do either of you
I
guys
haven't
know?
seen any signs of life.
Yeah, what's happening there? Jeez. Yeah, tell us, because there's actually nothing's been happening.
Nothing. Oh, by the way, there were people raging at Tulsi for quitting and endorsing Joe, and I'm like, why? Would you rather her endorse an octogenarian fucking socialist? Like, of the two choices. And here's my assertion, and I agree. My boy Conscious Caracal pointed this out, and shout out to him. She knew from the start she wasn't going to win. She was establishing her brand this time around so that she can run at a later point.
No, definitely. And that's the thing. I mean, I think the only reason that Bernie Sanders is still in the race is just to get his delegates. And then at the end of the day, he's got some leverage in the policy decisions if Joe Biden would to become the president. But I can't believe the turnaround that happened with the whole Joe Biden saga, because somewhere in the race it was looking like he's totally gone. And then I think it was the Super Tuesday. He just came in and like the whole DNC stood behind him, and he got the candidacy basically. So
it started before
I don't know how it happened.
South Carolina, bro, just before Super Tuesday, and Ruan, you and I had a chat about this, right? Okay, so what happened was South Carolina, which is a heavily black voting bloc, South Carolina, they're like, well, we're going to go for Joe. Joe's the most popular person, which, by the way, I'd love that like, how old is Joe now? He's like 70-something.
1,000. We'll just say he's
70,005, yeah.
And yes, guys, for those of you listening, I point out again that I'm calling Goosen, Goose, and Ruan, my co-host Ruan, for clarification. Anyway, so he's like 1,000 years old. He like honestly, he got his first hand job like just before the Great Flood. Like Noah was packing all the animals onto the ark, and he's like, "Hold on, I'm about to finish." Get it? That's where he got his first hand job. Like his
from Nancy Pelosi.
Yes, Nancy. The last time she had a period, like fucking Tyrannosauruses were still running around. So he's the most. By the way, I love that Joe Biden, a billion-year-old white guy, is the most popular black vote in a field that had Kamala Harris and Cory Spartacus Booker.
Booker never had a chance, man.
You know what? And oddly enough, it's a testament to like the women of the United States that even Cory Booker can get a girl as good as Rosario Dawson. Like Cory fucking Booker, dude, Mr. Potato Head with his fucking angry eyes.
Yeah,
eyes. Yeah.
But it's just all I'm saying is it just brings it back to the fact that regardless if you are Democrat or Republican, if there's one thing that Americans don't want, that is socialism and communism.
Yeah, well, at least most of it. I mean, some of the younger demographic, but also...
But I mean, majority of Americans, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on, they don't want that shit.
Especially the older generation. I mean, they still remember socialism. So, like, fuck no. Especially older, like older immigrants, like that came from socialist countries, and then they migrated, and then they fucking had kids and grew up there. Like, they remember what happened under socialism. They know. Also, in the southern states, sort of places like Florida and the South Carolinas and all that, a lot of Cubans and stuff in Florida. That's why Joe Biden absolutely wrecked shit in Florida. You know why? Because it's filled with Cubans who remember what socialism is. It's mostly Cubans and also old Jewish people who are like, okay, I'm not going to go for Bernie Sanders, who is literally openly campaigning with anti-Semites. So Sanders lost that, by the way. Like, honestly,
but he is a Jew, is he not?
Yeah, ethnically.
Yeah, he's a Jew.
Ethnically,
Okay,
but do you really
Jewish.
think Bernie Sanders practices Judaism as a religion?
I'm just curious.
Modern Judaism, yes.
Yeah, but do you think he goes to like synagogue and all that? I think the last time he saw a synagogue, fucking Nick Bauer was getting a blowy, which is never.
But regardless of
that's literally never. Yeah.
Regardless of whether he is or not, Jewish people, culturally at least, whether they're religious or not, like 99.9% of the time are definitely not socialists.
Well, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, well, not...
The Jews were the greatest force behind the Bolshevik Revolution.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I actually started listening to this podcast, the Martyr Made podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it, Goose, but yeah, a lot of the Bolshevik Revolution sort of had a common sort of recruiting ground between Zionism and the Bolsheviks. They were recruiting thing. So I mean, look, a lot of American Jews are not socialists by any stretch of the word, but to say that no Jews are socialists is a bit of a stretch.
I'm just going to put it out there. I've never met a socialist Jew.
No, obviously, especially not here in South Africa. No.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I know a lot of. If you look at the initial Communist Party of South Africa, 20% of the people at the start of the Communist Party were Jews.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, that's a long time ago. I don't know what it's at now.
I don't think that's the case now. I think they're very democratic. But so the US. I think what actually helped Joe was that massive win in South Carolina just before Super Tuesday, because he absolutely fucking destroyed Bernie Sanders. Honestly, like it wasn't even a competition. There's like that Simpsons meme, like stop, he's already dead. Like
classic.
Like he mutilated Bernie Sanders. Like he just ripped Bernie Sanders. Honestly, like
but even Elizabeth Warren, like she was just zero. She was nowhere, dude. She didn't win her home state.
Well, she was winning. She was winning for a while, and then she just petered out. By the way, Kamala Harris. Why did Kamala Harris at no point turn to Elizabeth Warren and say, after Elizabeth Warren got proved as a fake Indian, turn to her and say, well, I'm actually a woman of color. How dare you fucking do fake valor and all that? Because that would have helped Kamala. But no, she never once ever turned to Elizabeth Warren and said that. Like, that would have helped her. But anyway.
Who do you think Biden is going to choose as a VP pick?
He needs to pick somebody satisfactorily radical to reach out to that part of the Democrat Party, I think. Because after South Carolina...
It's got to be a woman.
Yeah, it has to be. After South Carolina, he got that huge win. Like, he just bodied Bernie, and then everyone's like, well, shit. We've got an actual fucking open communist who honestly, like, had a job. The last time he had a job was, well, never, like a real job. And this other guy that was under Barack. So it's like, okay, we'll go with the old doddering corpse, which, by the way, may not be a bad choice, because he's as long as a corpse is in the White House, he's not going to like sign any laws. So that might be an actual good thing. So they're like...
so my prediction is basically it might be Elizabeth Warren, because she's a bit more to the left than Joe Biden. But not radically left like Bernie Sanders. But it also might be Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. Is that how you pronounce it? Because we've been trying to figure...
I think it's Buttigieg.
Buttigieg is what Stick says, but it's Buttigieg.
Buttigieg or Buttigieg?
Really?
I don't think anyone knows how to say his name, actually.
I don't think he knows how to say his name, so I think we leave it up to the media to decide.
I don't know. Like, I mean, he didn't really have anything either. Like, there was nothing standing out about him either during the race.
He was like the centralist candidate, or the moderate candidate, basically. Or that's how he tried to position himself. But, I don't know. It might be him, or it might be Elizabeth Warren. It might even be Klobuchar. I don't know.
I love Amy Klobuchar, if nothing for the fact that I feel like if we were dating and we got into a bar fight, she'd help me knock people the fuck out. Like, she's that tough girl. Yeah. She's just gonna... She's got some
serious mommy vibes.
Yeah, she does. She's from Minnesota, so she's ready to like fucking throw down and just like, okay, let's do this. Just like knock some people the fuck out. So I guess 2020, I'm thinking if there is by the way, rip to Mike Bloomberg, who is the smart billionaire, the smarter billionaire than Trump. I love that all my leftist friends are like, oh, well, he's actually a billionaire and so much smarter than Trump. Well, if he's actually a billionaire and so much smarter than Trump, where the fuck is he now? Like, where is he? Where is he?
Well, I heard an interesting theory about Bloomberg, and that is he spent a shit ton of money on infrastructure. So, he's got offices all over the country. The advertising infrastructure is there. So I think he's placing himself also as like a vice president candidate, because if Joe Biden takes him as vice president, then he's got access to all his resources, and that's a big gain if you have an office in every state or every county. So I think that was more his leaning. But yeah, what an epic fail though.
But as McAfee said on the podcast a few weeks ago, he said you don't want to be the president, you want to be the VP, because no one's watching you. So
yeah, definitely. What's that movie, Vice?
Veep, that series Veep, I think it's called.
Veep.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of vice presidents, I know we're going to do a bit of a throwback here. I love that during the Me Too saga, the only person laughing was Mike. I don't go to dinner alone with women that aren't my wife. Pence looks pretty fucking smart now, doesn't it?
Yeah. What a based. What a based.
So based. Yeah, it's. I was just like, okay, well, I guess he looks pretty smart now, doesn't he, guys? Does he? So yeah, I think that Donny, if anyone can pull it off to that re-election, Donny from Queens can do it.
The only thing that could throw a spanner into the works is the economy. I mean, if the worst case scenario plays out and we enter like a depression, which is likely. You could see a battle between Donny and whoever for like handouts, because when times are desperate and people are losing jobs, and you can see the social impact of depression, then people aren't really worried about free markets and all of those things. They want protection now, and I'm scared the left would always win the argument if free handouts was the premise of the argument. So I'd have to see what the economic outcomes of this whole coronavirus thing is, because that could throw a real spanner into the works.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's going to have a big impact. I think you're right. There is a good chance that we may go into a depression at some point.
Because I was writing an article now, and the more I do research, the more I realize it's definitely on the cards.
I mean, if something doesn't happen in the next month or two, like something radical in terms of fighting coronavirus or some sort of solution, I think it's really likely. I mean, a frail country like ours, we are going to be suffering big time anyway. The fact that people can't go to work, they can't meet people, they can't. Companies don't want vendors on site anymore. So a lot of things not working, and people think that tech companies will be fine because people can work from home. That's just not how it works, man.
I'm actually
every industry is screwed right now. It doesn't matter what the industry is, from the taxi industry to, it doesn't matter. Every industry is kind of screwed.
Well,
I agree completely.
I may have to work from home as well. I'm a software engineer, and my company is making moves for more and more of us to work from home, especially people like me who are. Obviously I can't reveal everything for legal reasons, but sole dependencies on critical software engineering projects. Like if I get hit by a bus.
I'm seeing that with a lot of my customers, and I've got some really big customers, and what they're doing is kind of splitting up teams. So if there's a team of about 20 people that do pretty much similar things, they're kind of all being split apart from each other. And they're creating kind of like these micro teams in different offices, just in case something happens to some team members. But the thing is, things are happening like really slowly because you can't work as efficiently anymore. But Odin, you as a software developer, what is the reason for you needing to go to the office anyway, at least all the time?
Well, there isn't, and that's the beauty of it, that there is actually no, and I kind of hope that that's one of the things that, well, there's two things that I hope come about from it. Well, three things actually. One, the companies realize that remote work is a good thing, and in certain contexts, and like highly motivate people. Like, okay, I understand that some people may not be that motivated or dedicated to their job, but I think somebody who goes through the years and works through the months or whatever, whether self-taught or through varsity, to become a decent software engineer, is pretty disciplined and can work from home. You can trust them to work from home and get their shit done. So I think that that's one of the things that I hope will come out of this, is that software engineers are taught to, or people who can work remotely are given the chance to show that they can. And also just traffic. Fucking driving everywhere.
Jeez, eh?
Imagine how much carbon emissions we'll save. Dude, like
Corona did more than Greta for the environment. Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And also so remote working, and also just understanding, I mean, that'll be an extended benefit. And also just understanding sort of the psychology around work, that we don't always need to go to an office. Yeah. The other thing also is general hygiene. Amazing how much people now care about fucking washing their hands, keeping their hands clean. And the last thing, borders. Amazing how much you care about borders now. Like,
I don't know if you've seen the meme about the guy who says, like, we have to close all borders, stop cheap imports from China, women and children should stay at home. And then the other guy says, wow, that's awesome. How's that going to stop coronavirus? And then the guy's like, what's coronavirus? Like, that's what we should do from the onset.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like,
but yeah, I think the work thing is great, because I'm a social conservative, so like I don't think women should particularly be in the kitchen, but I can see the impact it's the women in the workplace has had on families, and how it's affected children. So I think if you can get more people to work at home, raise your children, don't outsource it to daycare or to schools, then we'd see better generations of kids coming out of it. Because if you outsource your education and your basic values to someone who's getting minimum wage, then you're not going to really get a good product.
Not just that, like for me, it would be really good for the economy if people work from home more. I mean, people would be saving a lot more money, probably spending a lot more money. Like, come on, it makes sense to me. Odin, how much money would you save if you have to work from home for 1 week?
Shit tons. And I drive a German automatic. Like, I drive an A-class diesel, and it's pretty fuel efficient.
Let me
Shout out to the Germans on their fuel efficiency.
Let me put it into perspective, right? Like, we used to have an office that I had to go to every day, and now we don't. We all work from home. All my developers work from home. Okay, all 2 of them. My business partner works from home. We meet up if we need to meet up, but I bought a brand new car 2 years ago. I've got 17,000 Ks on it. Less than 1,000 Ks a month that I've done on that car. Like, I've only filled it up 15 times in the last 2 years. Like, it's nuts. Not just that, like, we say
one of them was your travel here to Pretoria for our first meetup.
Yeah. Saving money on like office rent, which is freaking expensive.
Well,
infrastructure that you need to have an office is also freaking expensive. Like, all these things are so expensive. Also, you know how nice it is when you order something online and you don't care when it gets dropped off. Like,
you're
always at home, like, or you're always around, or or if you want to go out and go have lunch somewhere, you just freaking do it. Like, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
But so much money gets saved by working from home.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm a bit of and the Goose and I sort of overlap on this. I mean, I come from also the other thing of working from a. I mean, I come from a family where sort of going home and, well, not home, gochai, as we say in Setswana, but like we like Sunday lunch with my family, and saying grace at Sunday lunch and eating together is like a staple. And like you kind of look down upon if you get divorced. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, if somebody's a fucking psychopath, yeah, divorce him. But like, yeah, like say best, like Sunday lunch with our family and saying grace at the table and all that shit is a staple. So I kind
that's what keeps a civilization together, basically, eh?
Yeah, to join hands, say grace, and enjoy it. So I really get that. Like,
the only time when socialism is accepted.
Exactly. Like, I'm a socialist. I'm a socialist when it comes to my family.
Yeah.
So what would you say you are? You're like a social or a conservative libertarian, basically.
Yeah, right. I'm sort of middle of the sort of bottom. I think Ruan as well as also sort of mostly bottom right quadrant. Sort of mostly middle-ish, sort of there. So I mean, look, I'm pretty pro-family, pro-gun. We're actually both Ruan and I are actually pretty openly pro-gun. Yeah, pro-family. I'm pro-family, pro-life, and So I think.
Okay, so you're basically like a paleo libertarian.
Basically, yeah.
All right. Have you read any Murray Rothbard?
I haven't. I've been told to, but I haven't.
Okay. No, I think you'll enjoy his work.
Yeah, let me put it to you this way. I like Ayn Rand's view on economics. I don't like her view on social and sexual stuff.
Yeah. No, that's what turned me off of Ayn Rand.
Yeah. So
because I see a lot of libertarians taking that viewpoint, and that's where I clash with the whole libertarian school of thought, is the social part.
Speaking of libertarians, can we just for like 3 seconds talk about how suddenly people like, oh, all libertarians and conservatives now care about socialized fucking medicine. I'm like, no, you fucking morons. Okay, so I listen to a lot of conservative pop. Andrew Clavin, he encapsulated this perfectly. When you have a filling, you go to the doctor and you get that filling taken care of, and then you leave. You don't live at the fucking doctor's. But these fucking idiots want us to live at the fucking dentist because we have a filling now. No, guys, this doesn't mean we need socialized medicine. This doesn't mean we need full-on socialism. No, it just means in this crisis, and even like most libertarians I know recognize externalities, and they're like, oh, okay, now is a time with a clear sunset limit on when this should end. This is the time when government is actually sort of useful. Like, Ruan, I don't know about you, dude, but like I'm going crazy on this shit.
Everyone is, dude. Like, it's just every situation brings out something that you can say the other side is kind of being hypocritical. And I know it because I've been like that to socialists and communists. But like it's just one of those things that happen in every freaking situation, dude. It doesn't matter which side of the branch you're on. Like there's always going to be cases where you're kind of going to be hypocritical. But I think the main thing is in a crisis like this, you still have the difference between having a state-run healthcare and having private health as well is that on the private side, they can choose to be charitable, right? If health is, if it's a human right, which I don't think it is, If it was, and everything had to be state run, it means that no one has a choice to be charitable. And let me tell you something, most people, when they have a choice to be charitable, they are charitable. But they have to have the choice. You can't force it on them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think Zweli Mkhize, our health minister, the other day, he said no coronavirus tests have come out of public hospitals, like positive tests. All the tests that have come out of hospitals are private hospitals, which just shows you the efficacy of private healthcare. And yeah, okay, there are a few, other reasons why that could be. And also, I mean, private healthcare, it takes 2 days for the test to come out from the pathologist. Public health, it takes up to 9 days. And that's really the part of libertarianism I enjoy, and I'm actually like a big fan of the Austrian School of Economics. And they have this.
That's where this peace conference converges. Yeah.
Yes. Now we can. And they've got this analogy about, say there's a storm in the Caribbean, and we have to like distribute resources and coordinate. We have to like coordinate resources to save people and rebuild and stuff. And there's the libertarian way or the free market way, and that is having free or signals, cell phone signals throughout all the islands, and people can coordinate the resources. This guy can call and say, I need a few logs to build my house. This guy says, I need a rescue boat now to save my wife, whatever. And then you have the socialist argument, which says, let a single entity coordinate all the resources. But the problem is you don't have all the information in such a system. So, the central guy would be lagged a month with information, and then people would die because of that. So the whole market and price mechanism of free markets in a crisis situation is actually much better, because with the price mechanism, you don't need all the previous information. You don't need all the stories. You just see the price. You see, oh, the price is high. That means there's a big demand, or that means this is a valuable commodity. Low prices likewise. So I think that's actually a good argument to have in this time with the medical services. Is the price mechanism actually acts as an information bearer in critical times where decisions have to be made, and you can't gather all the information. It's humanly impossible, but the price mechanism gives you that information distribution better than any central organization would.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Ruan, what's your thoughts on the Competition Commission in South Africa? And
that's the problem.
Do they serve? I guess they probably, the goal is to both satisfy the economy as well as satisfy both the economy in terms of business as well as people and consumers, but somehow balance it. But sometimes I feel like they frickin' have no idea what they're doing. I know that recently I think they got Vodacom to drop data prices, which is fine and well. We do have expensive data, but it's like they don't understand why our data is expensive. We are not a country. We are a country where every frickin' cell phone tower's batteries get stolen on a daily basis. They don't see that correlates to a price for the consumer, because the consumer needs that. And just because it's cheaper somewhere else doesn't mean we can make it cheaper here. So what's your thoughts on the Competition Commission?
Well, we actually, at my university, we do a lot of work with the Competition Commission, because we have competition economics as a sub-strain. And the problem with South Africa is we're not a free market system. We're a quasi-socialist system, and then you can't determine what real price should be. Because let's take the Vodacom example. Vodacom and all the other service providers have to hire a certain part of the spectrum, and the problem is that the government owns the spectrum. So with the release of 5G, for example, the government won't allow the service providers to take over that spectrum, because I think that's the one that SABC and all the other state-owned broadcasting shows are run on. So the problem is you've got this intervention and people getting their hands into the market, manipulating the market. And the other problem with the Competition Commission is they have to put an enormous amount of research and theoretical calculations into their argument. And then when they go to the court to present the argument, then the other companies have like legal teams that you won't believe. I mean, it's like O.J. Simpson type of legal teams they have. So, yeah. So the problem is, it's a combination of factors that makes the Competition Commission relatively redundant, and it's not really useful in a non-free market system, because you've got coordination between big firms. I mean, we have like 3 cell phone providers. I don't know, I tweeted the other day, Naspers owns like all of everything basically in South Africa, and they can coordinate accordingly. So it's a crony capitalist / quasi-socialist system, and it's the price mechanisms are totally fucked.
So
that's my take.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it just kind of actually screws us consumers over, as well as the businesses, because maybe consumers get a quick win, because it may seem like a cool thing when it's announced, oh, you're going to get this cheaper or that cheaper, but in the long term, obviously, it has other effects. But
and it takes so long for the cases to play out. I mean, there was a cement case which took like 10 years, and it's basically too late. So it's just it's a lost cause in my opinion. But yeah.
Speaking of supply and sort of price controls, just a quick divert here, guys. For all the people hoarding huge amounts of toilet paper, quick question: how much more do you think you are going to shit in self-isolation? Like, you don't need hundreds more rolls. Like, I just, how much more do you think you're going to shit while you're living and working from home?
Yeah, since we have Ruan on the podcast as well, maybe you can also speak, since you're studying this, is why it is a bad thing for people to pretty much buy out complete supermarkets, and why the price of things go up in that sense.
Well, just on Odin's question, if you look at the correlation between baked beans and toilet papers bought, then there's your answer.
Stop buying baked beans then. Fucking buy bully beef cans. Buy bully beef cans. Freeze beef at home. You don't need to. Baked beans are not the only thing you're gonna need in survival. They're not a nutritionally complete food. Like, there's a bunch of shit you can buy. If you haven't stockpiled enough biltong, you're not South African enough, and you deserve to suffer through the apocalypse anyway. So yeah,
Devs. Most definitely. Yeah, I just think, I'm actually one who told people to stock up quite long beforehand. So I'll probably be a bit hypocritical if I say it's bad to stock up. But yeah, obviously.
Okay, maybe not that it's bad, about why people are now complaining.
Also, can I just send a big...
complaining about higher prices coming
not
along.
even higher prices. Can we just send a huge fuck you to all the socialist accounts who are like, oh, this is why capital doesn't work. Look at the empty shelves. Yeah, bitch. We got empty shelves now for like 3 seconds. Okay, that's like saying... That's like saying the first girl at the bar didn't give you your phone number and then you fucked the next 3 supermodels. Shut the fuck up, socialists. We got this.
The thing is, like, the initial shock, I think, was the thing that emptied the shelves. I mean, my dad, for example, is a pharmacist. And people are stocking up hand sanitizers and, like, you won't believe. And I think partly it's a psychological thing. We tend to hoard resources when we see uncertain times ahead. Like squirrels collecting nuts for the winter or whatever. Yeah. So that's the thing about the economy. It's a dynamic process. There isn't really an equilibrium, and like markets adapt to the situations. And the thing is with government trying to put in price controls now, which is the typical commie thing to do. That's only going to
compare it to when they put price controls. I always compare it to that person that when you're driving on the road and they're doing roadworks and there's that useless person in front that's just waving a flag. Where they could have put a sign there. Yeah. Like it's the same thing. It's like creating false. It's like creating false demand. That job isn't a real job.
What's that meme? What's that mean? It's not. It's what the farmer, and he says, "It ain't much, but it's honest work," or something like that.
Yes.
But it's exactly like that. I mean, you're trying to, from face value, trying to look like you are the ultimate commie government who cares about the people. But I mean, you're basically fucking us anyway. So. Yeah, I mean, price controls is gonna screw us in the long term. For example, my dad has to buy hand sanitizers now. For example, if a bottle of hand sanitizer is 50 rand from the supplier, and the government says all of a sudden, no, 30 rand sales price, my dad's not gonna sell hand sanitizers. Yeah. It's not profitable. And not only is it not profitable, you'll make a loss, and that the externalities, the negative externalities that come from that, it's often not seen because, you get the news article, government puts in price controls, what a lovely fucking government, they want to help us. But 2-3 months down the line, you don't see the article saying, shit, price controls caused a massive, shortage of hand sanitizers or, so people don't really see the effects of these types of policies, and that's how communism and socialism has strived over the past 100 years, because it's the initial gratitude and that's seen, but the after effects aren't always seen.
Yeah, not just that. As soon as those prices are cheaper, and people like your father are not buying it anymore because it's not profitable. It also means the supplier isn't. They may have great demand, but they don't have. The demand might be there for consumers, but because businesses are not buying from them, effectively their products become even more expensive to make. So because they cannot make these products then in bulk anymore or at the quantities that they used to. So effectively, it's just like this roller coaster of. Things just get more expensive the cheaper the government tries to make it.
Yeah, it's the unseen that gets you at the end of the day. So we'll see how it pans out. I'm like I said, I told people to stock up because I really think I'd rather expect the worst from something and then be pleasantly surprised if it doesn't pan out like that. But rather be pessimistic than optimistic in this scenario, I'd say.
Yeah, but people are really confused as to why prices go up when people start stockpiling stuff.
That's true. People don't get the price mechanism.
It's all about supply and demand, obviously. But yeah, those the one of the effects of stockpiling is that obviously there becomes bigger demands for certain things and becomes more expensive, of course.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, but this I want to take a bit of a detour here because this is quite interesting because the price mechanism, a lot of people think prices are just like, the only prices you get are the prices you see in the store.
Yeah.
And, normal prices. But interest rates are also prices.
Yeah.
And my big problem is central banks. Because we've been since 2008, the interest rates globally have been like rock bottom low. Like Europe has negative interest rates at the moment.
Yeah.
And the thing with interest rates is they coordinate spending and saving. So with high interest rates, people would rather put their money in the bank because they get a return from the interest rate. And that's saving. When interest rates are low, like they've been over the past 12 years, people only spend.
Yeah.
They just spend because you'd rather take a loan and invest it somewhere. You'd rather, cheap credit from Edgar's or whatever. And it's just consumption. And when a rainy day comes and you don't have any savings, then you're pretty fucked. And that's where we are now. So the manipulation of interest rates have actually screwed us more than any commie government has ever done, because in the past you'd save for a rainy day, and when it comes you can consume some of your savings through the rainy times and then continue onwards after the period is done. But what we've done is we've said there isn't going to be a rainy day ever again.
Yeah.
And now the rainy day has come and we don't have any savings. People don't have any savings. So, yeah, that's my biggest concern, because if people had savings, then the economy wouldn't have dipped this much now, because people would have resources to spend in these times that were available to them.
Well, can I just do the unthinkable and actually slightly defend price gouging? Because Lindsay Marsdorp of the EFF is like, white people and their prices, only they can afford it. Quick thing, guys, price gouging is a pretty good reflection of scarcity. And by the way, side note, declaring something a human right doesn't make it immune to scarcity. Just throwing that out there. And Lindsay Marsdorp of the EFF, he was on some tip about blah, 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 these prices, he's greedy capitalist. I'm like, cool. Look, price gouging sucks, but I'm pretty sure poor people would rather buy hand sanitizer or whatever at 50% more than have there be nothing of it left. It's just like, do people not understand that slightly price gouging? Yes, I know that there can be some abuses there, but something costing more, it sort of helps in that, poor people would rather purchase this at a higher price point than have nothing to purchase at all. You fucking idiots.
Well, if the price gouging is malicious and people are doing it because they know people are desperate, then I'm against it, because then you're not really charging the natural price for something. That's immoral. But if it's necessary and it's the supply and demand, and the cost price goes up, you have to sell it for more, then it's totally natural.
Yeah. Speaking of local and prices, assuming we're going into lockdown soon, just a slight detour again to local politics. Guess what country recently locked down its borders in Southern Africa as well? I think both of you know which country I'm slightly biased towards.
Zambia.
Yes, Zambia. Let's go. Botswana, well, two things it's in hot water for. Seriously locking down its borders, Botswana, and also recently hanging a convicted murderer who was proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to have murdered his employer in a fit of rage because he wouldn't give him a massive raise or some shit like that. This dude was convicted about 3 years ago, and the Bots government didn't bother wasting the bullets on him. They just hanged him. Yeah.
Based. So based.
Yeah.
They could have thrown it out of a helicopter to make it look better.
So yeah, they're like, no, we're just gonna hang him. Like they just went on. No, we're just gonna hang him. Yeah. So
I'm totally for that.
Exactly. My thing is, right, when there are people act like there's no situations where there isn't beyond a shadow of a doubt proof that you killed. This dude admitted it. In South Africa, we have situations where dudes like, yeah, I killed this person or raped this person. Guess what? Bots like, cool, we're just going to hang you. We're just going to hang you. That's what we're going to do.
That's so based. That's so based.
Right. It's like, we're just going to hang you. Like, that's our solution.
I was chatting to an Uber driver the other day, and I was like talking about the crime in the Western Cape with him, and I asked him like, "What do you think's the solution for the crime?" And he's like, "No, we must just kill everyone, kill all of them." I was like, "Yo, I agree totally with you." Like, people say like you can what's the word?
Rehabilitate some niggas?
Rehabilitate people.
Some niggas cannot be... There was this Louis Theroux, like, fucking document. She's like, no, like, even this one New Orleans gangster is just like, some niggas just got to go. Some niggas just gotta go. Some niggas just got... You cannot rehabilitate these niggas. Some niggas just gotta go. Just gotta hang him, shoot him. Don't waste the bullets, just hang him. Like, some niggas just...
Like, how many good people do you have to kill before, you know...
Well, for me, it's beyond that. It's beyond that, because if I know that you murdered or raped my cousin or whatever, or my sister or my mom or whoever, like, a portion of my tax money is now going to keeping you alive, and that just drives me insane. Like, it just, Yeah, no, I'd
gladly give some of my tax money for a cyanide bill or something like that, but or petrol for the helicopter, but not gonna keep you alive with my tax money. Sorry.
Yeah, but the only issue is, if you end up murdering someone that is innocent, because that
is an issue.
And my big problem with the death penalty is
the paradox of the death penalty is that the logic that if you kill an innocent person, you deserve to die, and we as a society sent you to death. And
but what if that person's innocent? And you don't know. That's number one. Number two, I don't know that I really want to live in a communist country where we have the death penalty.
That's true.
Because who's going to decide whether I die or not, and for what I die for? So,
well, that's a broader topic, because if you want to talk about a state and a sovereign state and a sovereign people, and how they choose to dispense with people they don't want in their society, then South Africa is definitely not the place, because we're such a heterogeneous population with no clear values, no clear history or religion or anything. We're basically, we were thrown together by the colonialists, and we're not a sovereign state in the theoretical term. I don't know if any of you know Carl Schmitt.
Sounds familiar. Remind us.
Okay. Now he's a constitutional theorist and a political philosopher. And he's got a very good theory of the political. So he talks about, we talk about politics and we go into detail about politics and the nitty-gritties, but he says it can basically be summed up into two things: friends and enemies. And your sovereign state, your people, your folk is your friends, and your enemies are outside your borders. And that's how we see politics, basically. That's how the ANC has been staying in power for so long. They create the enemy, they say we are the friends, and we'll fight the enemy for you, basically. And he also says a democracy always has to be homogeneous, and if need be, steps have to be taken to make it homogeneous. And yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it. So if you have a sovereign state and you have the basic values and principles and everyone agrees on the principles, then I think you can implement the death penalty, because, you know, people would broadly agree with the values of the society. But now, you know, you can basically get the death penalty for just saying coronavirus, something about the coronavirus which the state doesn't agree with, and yeah, it's not gonna work here.
Well, in that context, I'll pose a question to both of you guys then, in terms of nations and all that. Like, how do you feel about the sort of traditional Botswana relation between Botswana people and the Afrikaans people, and also how you feel about that traditional that long history and relationship, and how do you feel about the burgeoning Afrikaans population in Botswana?
Me personally, I just think that we as people all around the world could probably be the same with any tribe. The problem is that, I don't know, it's like some, you know, tribes, and Afrikaners being a tribe as well, being, we don't want to sometimes associate with people, and maybe that's because they don't want to associate with us, or we don't see any value in associating with people. So I think back in the day, especially for survival, and regardless of how far back you go in history, whether it's in Europe, Asia, wherever, if there were tribes that could help each other survive or had some sort of beneficial relationship, over time that obviously grows. But I think, like, at least nowadays, it's so stupid that we have governments and so on making sure that everyone is so freaking apart, and making sure that you remember who these people are, or you remember who those people are, and, you know, all this crap. And, like, does it really even matter? Like, we don't live in those times anymore. We don't live in, like, you know, no one's killing each other. Well, people are killing each other, but
yeah,
you know, like, can people just not get over it, you know? Like, and naturally, at least naturally, for people that have similar interests and so on, they will be like, kind of like magnets coming closer to each other, whether beneficial or not. People do things with other people regardless of race or creed or anything, because we are still many communities. We communities as friends. You can be friends with people of other races and creeds, and you have similar interests, or you have something that brought you together to be friends. And in the same way, that can happen on a much bigger scale. But we all understand community and being in some sort of community. And I think, at least from a cultural point of view, there are similarities where we can be like, this is something that we understand, or we, you know, because we are similar or share this kind of value. And I think that's kind of what it is. But there's no reason that you couldn't share values with others as well. And I mean, like I say, it doesn't all have to be the same. You can share values with someone else that's completely different in every other aspect of their freaking lives, but you both like freaking something stupid like golf. And you make sure you play golf with this person once a month on a Sunday, because that's something you're both interested in, and something that brings you guys kind of together. So, dude, I just feel like we need to get over this shit. You know what I mean?
It comes back to, like, I talked about Smith's concept of the political friend and enemies, and I think, like you rightly said, your friends or the people you associate with are going to be those with the same values as you, the same outlook, the same family structure or community structure as you, and you don't need to be the same tribe necessarily to get along with the other tribes. So that's where I think the Botswana, the Tswanas and the Afrikaners are a good example, because I see a lot of overlap socially and, you know, in terms of family and stuff with the Tswanas, and so I think that was there before South Africa began, because you had to make alliances with other tribes, you had to be accountable to other tribes and rely on them for certain things. But at the moment we've got this forced diversity, which is actually only diversity in name, because it's actually a forced homogeny that's being forced upon us, like this idea of a rainbow nation, but it's actually just one color they want to put everyone into, and that actually creates frictions, and you know, you don't actually know who your friends and your enemies are then, because you can't really associate with a tribe, you can't really associate with a creed, because you know, it's frowned upon by the people who see themselves as South Africans, you know, above all else. So that's the thing. That's my problem with current day South Africa. Is, you know, we've got this forced diversity, and that's actually counterproductive. That doesn't allow us to make alliances with other tribes. You know, and I think we need that, because we need that cohesion and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, 100% agree. The thing is, it's very valuable right now to put people into boxes, in these weird boxes, and for instance, in South Africa, where we are saying you're either white or you're black, or in other countries where you're either native or you're an immigrant, or, you know, like, the more we keep telling people, well, these people are people you shouldn't associate with, or these are the bad people and these are the good people, you'll never find out for yourself. And the fact
these
remains,
people are the people who damaged your future, or that caused harm to your forefathers or whatever.
And it doesn't give anyone the opportunity to get to know each other. And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah,
at least in my opinion.
Honestly, if I had to extrapolate it, forced diversity is like when your mom forces you to invite that one kid you don't like to your fucking birthday party, and you're like 8 years old, and like, I don't like him, now I have to fucking entertain this kid, I have to bring him into my social group, and like, there's a bunch of I mean, okay, now would be a good time.
At the end of the day, you end up mocking him anyway, so...
Exactly. I mean, now would be a good time to talk about our other sponsor, which is JB's Pub. JB's Pub is a place where everybody comes together of their own will and accord. JB's Pub is our premier sponsor, and we would like to send a huge thank you to both the J and B in the JB's Pub, whose names we shall not diverge until they so feel entitled. And at JB's Pub, you know, it's a good example, as Ruan, I'm sure you'll agree on this, is that people come there of their own will and accord. Like, people can associate outside of lines, sort of tribe lines or whatever, like of their own free will and accord, and happily, you know, end up there.
But there are kind of some strict rules, and that is we allow people that we think will get along with other people, and don't screw over people that you meet there. Like, and if you do that, you just don't come back, because that's how it works. And everyone's generally pretty freaking happy there. So yeah, and I think that's like kind of the perfect example. Like, JB's is the kind of place that, you know, you can only go there if you're invited, but people get invited all the time. And like, the first time you're there, it's kind of to see, do you fit in, or it's to see who do you fit in with, so that if these people don't come again, it's probably not a good idea that you don't come if they're not there. You know what I mean? because it just keeps everyone happy, and people are kind of honest there as well. Like if you don't like someone, you don't like someone, and you can say you don't like them. It's
So am I invited?
When you're back up in Joburg, if you
as a KP, like we're
100% welcome.
We're extending the olive branch here. We're gonna do like a physical peace summit there. Like, okay, cool. Now we're gonna.
Yeah, but you should know I need some danger pay to go up there. To that country you guys live in.
Don't worry, Ruan and I always conceal carry.
Yeah, we always carry.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And if you meet for more people at JB's, so at least at JB's you'll always be safe.
Yeah.
Awesome. As long as I don't get a bottle against there, I'm happy, eh?
Oh yeah, that doesn't happen there. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's
I saw John McAfee said that JB's Pub doesn't sponsor you, but you sponsor JB's Pub, so.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of true. But it's a good place. It's a good place.
It is a good
place. Listen,
place.
I just saw Cyril Ramaphosa is not gonna talk tonight, eh?
Oh, what a surprise!
Yeah.
Oh, he pulled out.
Yeah, he pulled out.
If only his dad did that.
If only Nick Bauer's dad did that.
Oh shit!
Blue tick mark.
Old Nick.
Oh my god! I swear, he looks like a fucking tranny version of Angela Merkel. Like if Angela transitioned to be a dude, like it's just.
Yeah, you're right.
Angela's bastard child.
Yeah, like honestly, like Nick, I always wondered like what happened to that dude that you were dating, and that dude, not the dude that you were dating, your girlfriend that you were dating, and she had like this best friend who was always talking shit about you. Like I always wondered what happened to no, like what happened to that dude? This dude that was my girlfriend's best friend and was always talking shit about me, and he grew up to be Nick Bauer. That's who he fucking is. Like. I'm sorry.
But then we need a highlight reel of all your disses on Nicholas Bauer, because I think you've literally torn him apart on Twitter.
All your Wotanisms.
Like,
well, I mean, I think his own dumbassery tore him apart, but. You know, thanks guys. Yeah, we'll do like a highlight reel of that.
Get Clipcop to do it.
Shout out to our boy Clipcop. Yeah, let him do a
Malcolm Media.
Like a Clipcop Malcolm, like sort of alliance, and then just ripping there. Yeah. Also, technically, guys, since this is a tech podcast, sort of, I do have to mention one slightly tech and science thing. Which is, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's this star called Betelgeuse, and it is unfortunately brightening again. Does that ring any bells for either of you guys?
Just when you said that, it reminded me of Betelgeuse.
Some people mispronounce it as Betelgeuse, but it's Betelgeuse, Betelgeuse, and it is a very bright star. It is the shoulder star of Orion. And if you guys know the sort of Orion constellation, it's Orion and Taurus, and there's that story about Orion the hunter and the bull Taurus. And so for the longest time, Betelgeuse was starting to dim, and it was showing symptoms of going supernova. And now we know that it's part of a longer sort of sequence of it dimming. So basically... just some quick context. Betelgeuse is a very big star. And to put it into context, I don't know how many more solar masses Betelgeuse is than our own sun. But let me put it to you this way. A lot of people know about sunspots, which are like slightly dimmer parts of the sun's surface. Which is like they're slightly dimmer parts. They're still emitting light. One medium to small size sunspot on Betelgeuse is the size of our entire sun. And
wow.
Yeah, it's a fucking massive star. It's huge. And we detected it was starting to dim. It was doing these dips, so it's about to dim. And Betelgeuse is basically coming off its, what we call in physics, main sequence of a star, where it started to burn out all its other fuel and it's starting to dim out before it just goes supernova. And the reason people...
SAA.
Yes! Fuck SAA. So it basically is starting to dim out, and the reason we wanted to observe this is because we wanted to observe a supernova in sort of in motion, and that's because there's a lot of physics we can attend. Because as it turns out, like people who actually study STEM fields, like not like keyboard sort of science atheists, keyboard warriors, whatever, people that actually study STEM fields actually understand how much we not know about the universe. Like, we don't know a hell of a lot about our universe. And we wanted to study it in motion, and unfortunately it started brightening again, which means it's not going to go supernova. But we know that from sort of radio astronomy, in that it's coming off its main sequence. It's going to go supernova, maybe in our lifetimes. Fortunately, so basically when stars go supernova, there's okay, I'm going to explain this quickly. So when a star goes supernova, what keeps it alive is that there's the weight of all its mass, and then there's the light pressure of the light that it's emitting from fusing elements, and that pushes the weight out. But when it runs out of enough fuel and it fuses heavy enough elements, the light pressure goes low enough that the weight just comes in, and then it bursts off that shell, and that shell is called a supernova. It just does this gigantic bright burst. By the way, FYI, if we got hit by a supernova, it would not be unlike like a lot of people know, the Book of Revelation, where it says that the earth will end in fire and all that. That's basically what would happen if we got hit by a supernova, and we've been damn lucky, quote unquote, that we haven't been hit by a supernova recently. But basically, a supernova would fry our planet in it would be horrific flames. So yeah.
But how would we know it goes supernova? Like in terms of the speed of light, because you say dimmed, but we only receive the light like light years.
Betelgeuse itself is part of the Orion constellation that's close enough that we relatively soon know what's happening with it. Relative as in days or weeks afterwards. But if really close, let's say if Alpha Centauri went supernova, we wouldn't. I don't think it's big enough to go alpha. Like our own sun isn't big enough to go supernova. Just FYI, we're lucky that way. So it's quote unquote that our own sun is not big enough to go supernova. It'll go red giant.
Lucky that way.
It's not going to go supernova. It'll expand, but it won't go supernova. Well, we got two things. One, our sun isn't big enough to go supernova, and two, we have a massive gravity vacuum in the form of Jupiter and Saturn that just sort of sucks up all the massive sort of asteroids and whatever that are coming our way. So we're, if you're on a more sort of secular slant, lucky, or on a more religious slant, that is lucky, just but Betelgeuse itself is part of the Orion thing, and it's part of his right shoulder. And the cool thing about Betelgeuse is if it goes supernova, when it goes supernova, we know it's going to soon, it's going to explode this bright red sort of thing. So basically what would happen is that you get this bright red bleed effect. So it's almost like Taurus, the bull constellation, finally got his revenge and gored Orion in the shoulder. So when it finally happens, you'll get this bright red bleed effect in the sky. And I think that's pretty cool that like when it finally goes supernova, we'll see this bright red bleed effect from the Orion shoulder when Taurus sort of quote unquote gores the Great Hunter, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
How long will that linger?
For us, it's gonna linger pretty damn long time. Like you couldn't set this up better. Like and also, by the way, if you're in Alpha Centauri, because of the position of the stars, we are in the precise position that we can see it as that constellation. Alpha Centauri, which is barely a couple of light decades away, whatever, the constellation of Orion looks completely different from Alpha Centauri, and they're not going to see any of that shit. But us here now, being alive in this point of time, in the next couple of 100 years, humans, we're going to see that constellation, and we're going to see the show of the bull goring the hunter in the sky, which I think is fucking awesome.
Let's get through Corona first, mate.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to get through first yet, mate. Jeez, like. Yeah. that's pretty cool. So we don't know when this is going to happen. We just know soon.
Fairly soon, like within a couple of 100 years, like that. It's going to happen in the blink of an eye.
It's not in our lifetime.
It may happen, but it's slow. But it's in a couple of generations. Betelgeuse is going to go boom, and it's going to leave this bright red bleed from Orion's shoulder.
Odin, what's your take on solar flares?
What's my take on solar flares?
Yeah.
I think that...
is it possible, like, we're going to experience one that might knock out signals or electricity?
Okay, again, I guess I'm a computer scientist and not an electrical engineer, but this is sort of my field of science. I would say they're one of the most underrated threats to humanity. I mean... If I were an alien civilization and I wanted to just totally fuck us over, I'd just like have a couple of probes sitting on the dark side of the moon and just have them EMP Earth into the Stone Age like a solar flare. I think we have been unbelievably lucky that is quote unquote that this a massive enough solar flare hasn't happened. I've looked at some of the mathematics and we're overdue for one. And I understand that...
I also saw that.
Yeah, I understand that a lot of companies are starting to look at shielding our electronics. I do not know everything, but I severely doubt, like the developed Western world doesn't have a lot of electronics and other things that are sitting in very shielded areas. So for the most part of the population, if a massive solar flare happened right now, it just fucked us all over. A lot of the population would be fucked over, but would it be the end of our electronic technology? No, I think that there's a lot of stuff sitting shielded somewhere that it's... Because it's not that difficult to actually... I mean, Cheyenne Mountain in the US is fairly well shielded against a solar flare and nuclear attack. So they're good. And I think that there's a lot of similar sites. South Africa, not so lucky.
We're more likely to be hit by a deadly virus than a solar flare then, basically.
Basically, I mean, we're on time. It's 100 years in 1920, 1820. Every 100 years or so, we're par for the course.
Yeah, no, I think this one's going to be big. I've been calling it since day one. So, I hope my predictions aren't wrong. But the world is so interconnected at the moment. It's never been this fragile.
Yeah, that's true. We are screwed.
It's a house of cards basically waiting to fall in.
Well, and yeah, I mean, no offense, but I hope for Nick Bauer's sake it kills off enough guys that he's the last man on Earth, and then maybe he won't get free zoned.
Still blue tick mark,
I think that's it's gonna be rough, and I think it's at the end of this, and I think we are going to come out of this whole Corona issue. I think at the end of this, we're going to start taking a serious look at our global sort of relationships at
Paradigm.
China. Everything. We're going to be like, okay, guys, we need to seriously examine this. And again,
Conscious Caracal called it well. He said paradigm shift happening right before our eyes.
Yeah.
It's like a post-World War II paradigm shift.
I'm still pissed at my more left-leaning friends who are literally simping for the murderous government of China just because they don't like what Orange Man Bad says. But I'm like, geez, guys, just for 3 seconds, really become aware of the situation. Okay, you are simping for the communist government of China just because you don't like what Orange Man Bad said. I get it, you hate him, but this is serious.
Dude, that's what I said.
You have the wrong friends, mate.
Yeah. I said it the other day.
Lefties,
like some people, who was it? I think it was Quinton was saying on Twitter, he doesn't understand why these people keep following Donald Trump if they don't like what he says. And yeah, dude, like people will just anything that he says.
No, but they enjoy it. They enjoy the rage. They enjoy the outrage.
I said they wouldn't, because Quinton was like, why don't they block him? I'm like, but then they wouldn't have anything to say about him when he tweets. Like, they do it because they need to be virtuous.
Yeah,
Which is
virtuous,
fine.
and they want reaction. Yeah.
Which is fine, do what you got to do, but the moment you kind of are against anything that someone says, whether it's right or wrong, just means you kind of lost the battle. Like, you got to appreciate when someone says something that is good and something that is bad. I mean, that's just how it is. We should all be like that. But as they say, bad people can do good things and good people can do bad things. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, the line between good and evil cuts through every man's heart, eh?
Of course.
I think some of these lefties are just a bunch of useful idiots for the CCP, and
that's what gets you. You're being useful idiots for the fucking CCP. I'm like, geez, guys, are you serious with this shit? And again, my heart goes out to every Asian-looking fucking person on the planet Earth that isn't in the Chinese government or isn't sort of complicit. Because I know, likely, statistically, I understand math enough. I'm a computer scientist. I know the vast majority of you are not complicit in the shit that, or like some Asian American born in fucking Missouri or whatever, Chinese American born in fucking Missouri has nothing to do with this. And you may suffer some backlash from some dumbass idiots in Missouri. But guess what? Okay, that still doesn't mean we shouldn't hold the Chinese government accountable. It still doesn't mean we shouldn't be frank about who's responsible for this. It still doesn't mean... And this, economically, this is going to have... jobs lost, some businesses turning people down, so some businesses shutting down, some businesses cutting down. People are like, oh, you're such an asshole, you only care about the economy. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I care about the economy because that has a human cost. If you do not think that jobs lost are going to not have an impact on families, on individuals, on communities, then there's a bridge in Brooklyn I can sell you because you're that fucking gullible. Like, honestly, if you think I'm only concerned about the dollar cost of this, no. I'm concerned about the dollar cost of this because at the end of this equation, there is a real cost for human beings, for families, for individuals, for everyone, communities. It's going to be a real cost.
Damn, dude.
Listen, guys, it looks like one of my earphones have gone again. So maybe we should all just close off with the prediction for the next few years. What we think the predicament in South Africa is going to be.
It's been a bit of a marathon session. Thanks for joining us, Goose. We hope to see you again. We're going to have a bonanza sort of political podcast soon. I'm thinking. Look, for example. We're going to turn into societies more. If you with civil societies more. I mean, looking at AfriForum with the Senzo case, looking at AfriForum with the Baralong tribe, looking at even I know mixed feelings. Herman Mashaba literally handing out fucking hand sanitizer and all that shit. All these people are not in government per se, and they are doing more than the government, and people are going to wake up to that and turn to sort of private institutions and individuals more. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I really hope that we become more community based as a society. Because I think we're all just really freaking fractured. It doesn't matter where you're from, like everyone is kind of fractured. But yeah, I think private companies are probably going to play, well, as much as the government will allow them, play a big part in what happens. And I think the more organizations like AfriForum do for all different types of communities, at some point, I hope communities start seeing the value in, being part of organizations that actually make differences. But that's just the hope and the dream. I don't know if that necessarily will happen.
Yeah, okay, and I think, like I said, I'm a bit pessimistic about the future. I think, government is going to take this situation and make the most of it to expand their powers, expand the the purview of the state, which I hope doesn't happen, but I know they'll use the opportunity to do. I hope normal South Africans start becoming active and stop being passive about their environment, start becoming active in their communities, helping each other out, dropping the bullshit that the media keeps spewing us. And hopefully the economic collapse is so bad that the ANC can't continue existing, and then we can I think we're going to balkanize, but then we can start building up our own communities, looking to localism instead of globalism for answers, and going back to tradition, going back to a better society than we have now, and hopefully we can build alliances, help each other out, and so I'm semi-positive about the future, but we're going to have to go through some pain to get there.
Good stuff. Well, that's as good a cap off of any, I think. Run the Goose, and where can people find you on Twitter and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, well, Ruan Goosen on Twitter, or the Goose. I've got my own podcast, Goosenomics. If you're Afrikaner or you're Afrikaans speaking, then give that a follow. Yeah. And I'm not that active because I'm busy with my thesis at the moment. So hopefully with coronavirus, I've got some more time on my hands. But thanks for having me, guys. It's been a great chat. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and hopefully we can do it in the future.
Yeah. We will
hopefully when the sports is back on, then we need to do
2.0.
Yeah.
We'll drop by your neighborhood again.
We do it at JB's.
At JB's,
Okay.
we'll drop by your area of the world.
Yeah. If you're in the greener side of the pasture, then let me know.
All right. No, that's good. Well, Odin, from my side, thanks Ruan and both you guys. Nice chats. Just of course, shout out to everyone on Discord and everywhere that's following us. And then a big shout out to Mooncake, because he watches every one of my sim racing live streams. So thanks Mooncake. Thanks for the support, Matt.
Nice one, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the No Script Show. You can catch us at noscriptshow.com. Once again, thanks to our boy Ruan the Goose Goosen. We will have you back on. We're going to have a fun sort of based stream. Tight borders AF. So we will see you. You can catch us at noscriptshow.com and check out our Discord server, and this will be published on our various channels. And thanks, bro. We'll see you when we see you.
Cheers and peace out,
Cheers,
guys.